I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is male model Aaron Murray. Aaron, what's tougher? Staring down a Nick Saban pass rush or not laughing as the photographer says to you as you're shirtless wearing jeans, hey, Aaron, put your hand behind your head and give me this most serious face you got. What's tougher?
Oh man, I would say the modeling, because at least the adrenaline's going when you're playing football. So there's really no time to think, especially going against a Nick Saban and Kirby Smart at the time led defense. It's kind of like, hey, ball snapped and you just got to react and play. Where when you're standing there for 20 minutes, trying to flex as hard as you can to create some sort of abs and trying all these wild poses was a little awkward, but they turned out well. It's amazing what you can do with lighting. When you put lights in certain directions, it's crazy what you can do. So yeah, a little bit more difficult.
The second I saw that picture, I texted you and I said, if you think I'm not going to bring this up the next time you're on, you're crazy.
I got demolished from all my buddies about it. Yeah. And actually there's a couple like, hey, it's always awkward. Like, we're athletes, but now or in my case, former athletes, but there's like this blend of athletes / fashion that has obviously continued to increase. And whether that's college or professional, I mean, all these guys, they look good, they dress good, they spend time. Where before, like, I would show up to a football game and we'd wear our team sweatsuits, just you don't have to think about it. Now these guys are showing up with the chains, they're showing up with the suits, and definitely the blending of fashion and sports has been interesting to watch over the past few years.
Hey, to do it in your mid-30s, man, no small feat. No small feat. Hey, I applaud you. You ran a marathon this past weekend. Where did running a marathon rank among your athletic feats?
I'll say this, the 20-mile 22 through 24, which is always kind of you read about marathons, always the point where the body starts to really fatigue and break down. The marathon we ran in San Diego, mile 22 through 24, was also up a highway, which was about a 10 to 12 incline on a treadmill for 2 miles at that point too. So the point where your body is supposed to start really breaking down is the point where they made the marathon the hardest. I would say like that was one of the most difficult things I've ever done from a training standpoint. Going back to like my time training for, I was at Georgia or high school or in the NFL for a few years. Like, that was mentally and physically absolutely exhausting, but it was fun though. I mean, to now say I ran 26.2 miles. We're already picking our next marathon out, trying to find somewhere that's flat and not as hilly as it was in San Diego. And hopefully to beat our time that we put out there. But it was fun. It was really cool. My wife and I, back in December, I probably had a few too many cocktails around Christmas, and she's a runner, not like super long distance, but 8-10 miles every now and then. And I was like, you know what? You've talked about doing a marathon. If you want to do one, I'll do it with you. We'll train, we'll run it together. And she jumped right on it. And I was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said that much. And it's been fun training with her since January. I've never run more than 3 miles in my life, 3 or 4 miles. So to train in that short of a time to go run 26.2 was a lot, very time consuming, but it was a lot of fun. And like I said, a lot of fun to do with her on our anniversary. That Sunday was our anniversary, and we chose not to spend it at a nice steakhouse, but instead riding together out in San Diego.
You're crazy. Yeah,
I know.
You're crazy. That's what that means.
Am I crazy that I did it, or am I crazy that I want to do it again?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Yes, all the above. Yeah, definitely. Especially after, like you said, that experience late in it. That is extremely difficult. Okay, enough small talk. Let's talk about your fire take about Arch Manning that made the rounds. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, you said on SEC this morning about Arch Manning, if you're so good, why the hell are you not playing above a 7th round quarterback? Were you taken out of context at all, or would you care to elaborate more so on that for our audience?
Yeah, and I think for those who listen to the entire kind of segment that we talked about Arch and quarterbacks, and of course, Sirius does a good job, just like everyone else, to to take the 30 seconds that I talked about that specific thing and kind of blowing it up. But I'll start by saying this. Arch Manning is a very talented quarterback. And I said this during the interview, or not the interview, but when I was on SiriusXM during the segment as well. I will never, ever root against or badly for any quarterback because I know how difficult it is to play that position at that level. And I guarantee it's even harder for guys because they're making money and even harder because his last name's Manning and the expectations that go along with it. My big thing has always been with Arch during the entire process from, the moment he stepped foot there in Texas to now leading into his first season is I need to see it first. And this goes for every quarterback. Like, I'm not going to crown you a top quarterback or, people going crazy saying, oh, he's going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft come 2026. Like, what has he done? What has he truly done that has been an, oh my God moment? I mean, can you name one? You go back to last year's tape. It wasn't great against Georgia. It was good against, I forgot who the heck they were playing. It wasn't a Power 5 team. It
Louisiana
looked good.
Monroe, UTSA.
Yeah, I mean, but where's the tape against a Power 5 team, an SEC team, where I can sit back and say, you know what? That's a number one pick in the NFL draft quarterback because he did it, and he did it in a big-time game, and he did it against a big-time opponent. I haven't seen that yet. I go back to last year with Nico. And I had the same feeling with Nico. Nico, the $8 million quarterback. Nico, 6'5", 6'6", big-time arm, athletic. He's in a very quarterback-friendly offense there with Josh Heupel. He's going to do stupid stats. It's going to be incredible. You're like, people were crowning Nico last year, this guy that was going to be a top 2, top 3 quarterback. And I went on multiple shows and say, pump the brakes on Nico until he does it. And Nico kind of had a roller coaster season. Started off well, kind of went to a low middle of the season. Thought he finished off a little bit better than it was in the middle, but it wasn't to the expectation that we thought it was going to be. And then obviously the drama this offseason. So once again, I'm not anti-Arch. I think he's very talented. I think there's a lot of good stuff that we did see during limited playing time last year. But to sit back and watch people put him as a number 2 quarterback in the SEC, to say people he's going to be the number 1 quarterback picked in the NFL draft, off what film? Off what film? What have we seen that warrants that ranking? So once again, not to say he can't get there. I just think it's a very talented SEC this year with a lot of really good quarterbacks. And I'm not going to grant him top 5 quarterback in this league until he goes out there and does it at a high level. And he's going to get that opportunity week 1.
I brought this up after those mocks came out, and I don't remember because I for what it's worth, and I'm on record saying this, I don't think he goes to the NFL after 1 year as a starter.
No.
I think he's going to be a 2-year guy at Texas. I don't know if there's another example of a guy who's never been a full-time starter going number 1 in these way too early mocks. I haven't seen anything like that before. And so the context of the quote, that's probably more so like what you were trying to get through with it. The problem is that, and when I initially saw it, I'm like, wait a minute, I can push back on the Quinn Ewers part of it because you and I both liked Ewers coming into the year. I like
Ewers a lot. Yeah.
We didn't think he was a 7th round quarterback until he was picked in the 7th round. So that part's a little bit tougher of like, well, why weren't you starting ahead of him? I think
I would
that
say this,
context
like,
is
Quinn at Texas last year, and I'm sure you agree with me on this, had probably a top 2 or 3 roster in America. I mean, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, the top 3 rosters in America. Why did Texas maybe not compete the same level Ohio State or win a national championship last year? And at times it was Quinn. It was Quinn's inability to move. It was Quinn's inability in those big time games against Georgia to be able to create plays consistently, to escape the pocket, to extend plays. What was Quinn Ewers, and why are fans so excited about, Arch compared to Quinn? Why are they so much more excited about him? It's, I don't know, maybe the arm talent a little bit, but it's escapability. It's the running ability. So when I do sit back and I reevaluate Texas's season last year, and I look how talented the roster is, and I look at how good of a play caller Steve Sarkisian is, and the talent they had around Quinn Ewers, and you sit back and say, like, why wasn't that team really competing for a national championship? What was holding them back at the end of the day? And a lot of it was Quinn. So, like, if I'm Steve Sarkisian and I know that, hey, Quinn Ewers, who I'm still with you, I think is a talented quarterback, and I was much higher on him preseason last year than what I was at the end of the season. But if he's struggling whether it's injury or whatever it was that Quinn was battling. But
The torn
he's not
oblique, yeah.
performing at a level that is going to give us a chance to win a national championship. And I know my roster is national championship caliber roster. And supposedly the backup quarterback is this incredible quarterback that's ranked number 2 in the SEC heading into this season, that's projected as a number 1, 2, or first or second round quarterback in 2026. If he's that good, why wouldn't I at least give him an opportunity to play more? And Sark didn't do that. I don't think Quinn's a 7th round quarterback. I think Quinn, to me, was probably somewhere around a 5th round quarterback. But still, if that roster was that good, and if you're that good of a quarterback, Steve Sarkisian's a good enough coach that he would have put him in even a little bit. Like, I was shocked that down the stretch, we didn't see any Arch Manning in any game.
He came in and he would come in for like a 4th down play. He would come in those last 4 games. He almost fumbled in that key moment against Ohio State where definitely looked like he suffered a concussion going down. Where I'll push back
very limited. Yes,
he was. Very limited. I thought he would have more of a package against Georgia. That didn't prove to be the case. He was instead used more so as a decoy in that spot. And you're right in that some of this is kind of jumping the gun. Like if he was already there at that level, then you're right. There would have been more of a dilemma when Ewers was dealing with the ankle as well, because that was the part where when he suffered that injury, I think it was against Kentucky in the late season, you really saw those limitations. And you're like, man, if it's just not there. The problem was Texas kept winning and was at least competitive enough to be able to get into the playoff. And you had these moments early on in the season with Ewers, or like the Michigan game. He was awesome.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
He was phenomenal. So Arch comes in, and it wasn't like what Arch was going to be able to do against those teams was going to usurp what Ewers did, because Arch was the 3rd string guy as a freshman, and Malik Murphy needs to get credit for that, because what he did to separate himself, that was a big part of it. So like that context is probably needed for more so like why he didn't jump Ewers, this guy that is a 3rd-year starter, has played in some big time games for them. But you're right. We're probably jumping the gun with the number 1 overall pick stuff.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Well, even I saw, Pate came out this morning with his top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC. Yeah, it has him at number 2. And I know it's a big time name, and I know that gets people talking just like now, when you bring up Ewers. But to put him at number 2 ahead of guys that we've seen play in this league and we've seen play at a really high level. And I think maybe part of it's the fact that people know that Texas has such an elite roster, that Steve Sarkisian is, it's in my opinion, probably the number 1 or number 2 play caller in America. And they're banking on the fact that, hey, you couple that with a talented quarterback, that year 1 is going to produce some pretty big highlights. That's going to produce some really, outlandish stats, possibly with touchdowns and yards and all that. But to put him over, a Sellers, who was an absolute Superman last year, without any, Sellers had no support. I had 2 of their games last year. Their receivers at South Carolina were probably the worst in the SEC. Love their tight end. They had no receiver play. So what Sellers did was incredible. Love that kid. To put him over Nussmeier, who I thought had a really good year last year, that is flooded with receivers all around him. He's going to have a spectacular season. I mean, I could list 2 or 3 other guys that you're like, I've seen this guy play. I've seen him play at a high level in the SEC, have success, and now is going into their 2nd or 3rd year, whatever it may be. And you're going to put a guy that's only played against, what'd you say, New Mexico State in there ahead of him?
That's just Mississippi State too.
Just pump the brakes.
Okay, so let's do a little exercise then. You mentioned those 2. You mentioned can't rank him ahead of Sellers and what he was able to do last year. What about DJ Lagway? Would you rank Arch ahead of DJ Lagway?
I think DJ Lagway, and this is where people are like, oh, DJ didn't play that much last year. How are you going to rank him in? I had DJ his first game versus Kentucky, and I had an opportunity to sit down with DJ and talk with him before the game, and then watching him that game and watching him throughout the season. I think DJ is the most gifted quarterback in this league. Like if tomorrow we had a combine and we line up everyone for the 40, the 5, 10, 5, walk down in your underwear, throw in front of all the scouts, all that stuff. I think DJ Lagway, people would walk away like there's no doubt about it. This guy checks off every single box. Elite arm strength, elite athleticism, I think has a great head on his shoulders, built really, really well. I think DJ Lagway, if anyone, has the most potential to being a number one pick in the NFL draft eventually one day. So I would bet on DJ because he has all the attributes that you want in a quarterback. I think Arch has a good arm. I don't think anyone would say like Arch is super electric as a thrower. I don't think he's elite when it comes to arm strength. I think he's good. I think he's above average. I think he can make every throw you want. He's got good footwork. He's got really good athleticism, and he can throw the ball well. But there isn't anything to me that is possibly like elite. And it doesn't have to be. I'm not saying like you have to have a Josh Allen arm. You don't have to be Lamar Jackson with your legs to have success in college, to go on and be an NFL quarterback. Hell, his two uncles didn't have elite arm strength. Peyton Manning would say it. I was at the Manning Academy, and he's like, guys, I can throw the ball 40 yards. Every high school kid here could probably throw the football farther than me. But guess what? His brains and what he did and the way he set up his offense led him to those Super Bowls and led him to all those records. So you don't need to have all that to be an incredible quarterback. But I will say this, like there's multiple quarterbacks in just the SEC that are more gifted in a lot of areas than Arch is. But doesn't make you always, like I said, the best quarterback or the best football player when it's all said and done.
So you would take Nussmeier over Arch. I would assume that.
I would take Nuss. I would take DJ. I would take Lenoris over him.
Those are the three that I have ahead of Arch.
Yeah.
Because I had him at 4. Diego Pavia?
No, I wouldn't take Diego. I think there's a Mateer at Oklahoma. You go back and watch his tape from a year ago. I'm really impressed. And he's another dude, super athletic. I think has a really good arm. I think because of the experience, I would probably take him right now over Arch. Not saying like in the long-term future, Arch in year 2 or Arch heading into the NFL come 2027, that he couldn't be a better prospect. But if I had to pick a quarterback heading into next season, a guy that's played a lot more football and I think has a lot of the attributes that you want, especially at the college ranks with his athleticism, I would probably take Mateer next. So, I mean, Arch to me, somewhere in that, 5, 6, 7 range, which is still for a guy that's played limited reps, I would say is still pretty good in a really competitive league. But
Marcel Reed,
like Diego, I think Diego's an incredible competitor, good athlete. We all know kind of lacks the ability to throw the football at times. So I wouldn't take him ahead of him. And I still like Jackson Arnold. And I think Jackson Arnold's going to be in a better position at Auburn. Not saying I would take Jackson over Arch by any means, but I think Jackson, you go watch him early in the season, made a lot of really good plays there at Oklahoma without any support at all. Now goes to Auburn. It may have one of the best receiving cores in the SEC and in all of college football there at Auburn. And with a better offensive mind. So I think you could see I would say a big jump from where he was at Oklahoma a year ago to what you're going to see from Jackson Arnold this year at Auburn. So like that's someone you throw in the mix as well. Taylon Green, I think, is a guy that has a lot of really good attributes. Big kid, probably the most athletic quarterback in the league, heading into his second season in the offense. Needs to clean up some of the mechanics throwing the football, but I like him a lot. As well. So like I said, there's a lot of great quarterbacks, and a lot of these guys have played a lot more football than Arch. He has some catching up to do, but still, like I said from the very beginning, very talented quarterback, has an opportunity to play really well in a great offense with great talent around him. But let's just see what he does in week 1 and beyond.
I haven't had a chance to catch up with you since the Carson Beck injury, NFL, Miami, all that stuff went down. What's been your take on basically how Carson Beck has handled everything since he got hurt in the SEC championship?
I think he's handled it pretty poorly, to be honest. You and I have talked about him before. Georgia fans know how I feel about Carson since the first time I saw him throw a football 3-4 years ago. Has all the talent in the world. I don't think anyone questions Carson's ability to throw the football, to play the quarterback position. There's a reason why he was slated to be the number 1 quarterback off the board preseason of last year. I mean, he's got all the tools you want, and it just never had that consistency from, obviously we know the receivers drops at times. He was pressing last year. It was not a great season, but if Carson didn't get hurt in the SEC championship game, I think he would have gone to the NFL, probably would have been, a mid-round, 3rd round guy, maybe 2nd round guy. just because of his size and his ability to throw the football, and has had some really good games in his career. So you're still talking about a guy, even with how bad last year went at times, probably still would have been somewhere in that second or third round if he didn't get hurt. So I love the fact that he came back. I think that's obviously going to improve his draft stock when it's all said and done. I don't like all the distractions. I don't like what I've heard from the locker room that at times he was not one of the guys in the locker room that was more concerned with making TikToks, being with his celebrity girlfriend, obviously the drama in the offseason with said girlfriend and everything else. Is like, if I'm an NFL GM or coach or offensive coordinator, I need my quarterback locked in. You're the leader of the football team. I don't need you out here, being headline news for off the field stuff. So I think there's some maturity, which is hard to say for a guy that's been in college football for so long. But I think that there's still more growing up that Carson needs to go through and maturing to know what it means to be a professional. And being a professional quarterback doesn't mean that you drive, a G-Wagon and a Lamborghini and have a celebrity girlfriend. Like, that's not what it means to be an NFL quarterback. NFL quarterback is the first one in, last one out. He's the guy that can bring a locker room together, not someone who is kind of the, not saying he was always the last one in, first one out kind of mentality, but just there's some things that need to mature with Carson to where if he does have a good year, which I'm anticipating he does at Miami, because I still believe talent wise, the everything you want's there, but the maturity has to get better for GMs and NFL scouts to really consider him for the first round next season.
Do you believe Georgia wanted Carson Beck back?
I don't know. Mixed messages. I think that there is a love of Gunner, and I'll say this. When I watched them last year in preseason and watching them throw the football, Carson is 6'4", 6'5", big arm, 230. I mean, like I said earlier, he is everything you want from a quarterback. Has that sneaky athleticism as well. So you watch both of them throw, and you're like, just like there's a gap. But I also said this back in 2017 with Jake Fromm and Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason, 6'5". Jacob Eason was the number one quarterback in the country. I mean, the way he throws the football just makes you like, oh my gosh, like this kid is everything you want in an NFL quarterback. Big, strong, physical, spins it. It's just super sexy. And here comes Jake Fromm, kind of built like me, 6'1", 6'2", not super athletic, average arm strength. But guess what? Dude worked his butt off. And once again, I'm not saying that Eason didn't do any of these things. I'm just saying Jake Fromm did these to the extreme, was an incredible teammate, made guys around him better, did the right things on and off the field, was the first one in, the last one out, always studying the film. And to me, that's what Gunner is. Gunner is that guy who is still talented, very athletic, obviously more athletic than Jake Fromm was, has a good arm, maybe not like first round caliber arm talent, but still a good arm, but can bring a locker room together. And I always tell quarterbacks this stuff, that's part of your job. You have to be a guy that makes other guys around you play better, that makes other guys around you want to play harder. And it seems like there was a disconnect with Carson a year ago. And it does seem, based on what I saw in the SEC championship game and what I saw against Notre Dame, that guys do want to play harder for Gunner. And like I said, that's part of your job as a quarterback. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And kind of going back to what I said earlier, I went back and watched every single snap from Gunner last season. And I thought he actually played pretty darn well. I thought he played really well in the game versus Notre Dame. I thought he played well in the game versus Texas. So there is a lot to like for Gunner Stockton. Plus you throw in hopefully a better receiving core as well. I'm anticipating he has a good season.
Your man, Bobo. How would you evaluate his 2024 performance?
I would say it was very difficult for him with the lack of explosiveness in the run game, the lack of consistency in the pass game, whether that was Carson pressing, whether that was receivers dropping the football. And could Bobo have been better? 100%. And he'll be the first to admit it. And I know Kirby would say the same thing. There's improvements that need to happen. But when you don't have, elite running game, when the offense line maybe doesn't perform as well as anticipated, when Carson makes silly mistakes, when the receivers are dropping passes left and right, it's kind of hard as a play caller to say, you know what, I feel good with my entire play call sheet. I can close my eyes, put my finger down, and say, you know what, this play is going to work because this player I feel good in. Like as a fan of football, as a fan of Georgia football, who would you target last season? Because the tight ends were inconsistent. Oscar and Lawson kind of they struggled early on. I thought Oscar got better as the season went on. I like Lawson obviously a lot going forward as well. Thought the running game was super inconsistent. And I thought the receivers dropped a lot of passes. So like, who would you target? If you were Mike Bobo, where would you go in a game plan to move the ball consistently against SEC defenses? It was a difficult spot. So not to defend Bobo or anything like that. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. I'm hoping he does terrific this year with hopefully better talent around the quarterback position. Really happy that Kirby went out there and got some big time guys in the portal, went out there and put an emphasis on the receiving position to the high school ranks as well, to maybe make life a little bit easier as a play caller.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, Bobo would text me at halftime of these games being like, Aaron, what do you got? Didn't work out for the first 30
Who would
minutes.
you target? I mean, like I'm saying, like where would you as a fan say, hey, go feed this guy? Don wasn't getting it done. Aaron wasn't getting it done.
I won't do the thing where I pretend like I have offensive prowess. Okay.
Yeah.
So like what I say doesn't mean anything in that regard. I thought they could have targeted Dom Lovett more downfield. His Mizzou numbers reflected that he would have been used better in some of those spots, and it was too much stuff that was close to the line of scrimmage. I didn't like that. I thought Dylan Bell's usage was frustrating at times, and he wasn't necessarily ready to be that prototypical outside receiver. I thought they had to get more creative with him. I thought there could have been some stuff that they could have done to get the quarterback run game even more involved, where I think Carson Beck could have had moments where if he had just been like, let me just get myself going by taking a hit, moving the chains, throwing the first down and going, let's go. Like, I think that would have snapped him out of some of these ruts at times. Those are small, insignificant things, but you're right. If receivers are going to drop passes, if guys aren't going to be reliable, and the thing that I kept bringing up last year, if guys aren't going to be willing to make those plays that are going to be like, whoa, they really bailed you out, you can only do so much as an offense. So I'll definitely defend Bobo.
Also the running game too. Like I think it's been, I mean, hell, it feels like it's been 3 years since Georgia, 3 or 4 years since Georgia's had elite running backs, you know, and you know, I was hoping that ETN would be that guy last year. And I said, I think the offense line has part to do with it, but where were the, and maybe I'm just, you know, was lucky enough to play with some of the running backs that I played with back at Georgia, but it felt like, you know, once or twice or even more times per game, we were breaking a 20-yard gain. We were breaking a 40-yard gain. Hell, we're breaking a 50-yard gain. Yeah, I go back and watch the highlights, and Keith Marshall and Todd Gurley, it felt like, you know, like I said, multiple times a game, one of them was breaking it for a 50-yard touchdown. It just felt like everything last year was difficult. The run game was difficult. Guys were dropping passes, and there wasn't that explosiveness. So, you know, I think there's definitely some, you know, for how talented of a roster when it comes to stars Georgia had last year, I think guys did not perform to the level that they needed to either.
It was a slog, no doubt about it. It definitely was. Can an offensive coordinator be the difference in a guy being benched or being an all-conference guy? Is there really that much variance in a play caller?
I would say yes. You know, going back to what we talked about earlier with Texas, I think Steve Sarkisian, you know, the more you watch tape of Texas, the more you watch him, the way he sets up plays, the way he is able to create leverage, whether that's formational or motion wise, forcing defenses to get in certain coverage because of said formation or motions, I think is incredible. I think he is one of the best. Obviously, you go to Lane Kiffin there at Ole Miss, and the amount of times that you turn on the tape and guys are running wide open because of the way he is able to formation defenses and get guys open based on schematics. So I think those two guys are on a different level. I think those guys, the way they develop quarterbacks, develop receivers, get guys open, and really frustrate defenses and defensive coordinators. Like I said, I think those are the top two guys, not just in the SEC, but just in college football in general. Really, really love watching tape on those guys. So going to your question, does it make a difference? It does. 100%. It makes a difference. If you got play callers that are that elite back there, it makes, you know, which goes back to what we talked about earlier with Quinn. Because I feel so strongly about Steve Sarkisian and his play calling ability. To see Quinn struggle at times last year was frustrating because the talent was there, because you had a veteran offensive line, and because you had Steve Sarkisian. You got to put up big numbers. There's no reason why you should not, especially with the amount of playing time that Quinn had. So I think that was part of the frustration as well throughout the season for Texas fans.
Last one for you. I'm not sure if you saw, but news broke this morning that Will Rogers is getting another year of eligibility, and he's transferring to Kentucky. He needs 28 touchdown passes to break your ICC record. Are you nervous?
I hope you're joking, right? You're joking, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. No, he's
I don't know
out of
nowadays. You never know. Like, I mean, this could be serious. Like, yeah, you could get a 7th, 8th. I mean, I had the Vanderbilt game versus South Carolina last year where Diego won or was granted more eligibility. We were literally at dinner and I get a text message from Jordan Rogers like, hey, if you need any more insight about, what just happened, let me know. And we're like at a production, not like our production dinner. None of us knew. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, I guess now we know we're going to add to the open now, like, 12 hours before kickoff. So you just never know in today's world, how many more years guys can get and whatnot. But Will, you played in a great offense. I think you're an awesome guy. But leave the rest of my records alone. Just move on.
Your record's safe, man. If you looked at the leaderboard, you're good.
Oh, I know. Especially with how much guys move around nowadays and all that. Like, I feel pretty confident we could be up there for a while.
Yes, Aaron Murray, SEC career touchdown pass leader, marathon runner, both bumper stickers on the back of the minivan.
Oh, I do. Should I get the 26.2? Should I?
Don't. Nah, you don't need that, man.
I'll put it on the back of the laptop. There we go. So I'm at the coffee
even better.
shop. Yeah,
I like that. And then you get to talk about fitness, your fitness feats every single time. You're doing something work related.
Next, it'd be 26.2 on one side, the back of the laptop, and then my modeling picture on the other side.
Boom. Who says no to that?
Yes, I know.
That guy's
I know. My wife may kill me.
Oh God, Aaron, you're the best, man. I'll see you in Atlanta in a few weeks.
Appreciate you, man.